Hello and welcome to this session on designing and deploying AIoT workloads on Kubernetes. My name is Janakiram. I am based out of Hyderabad, India. I am a CNCF ambassador, certified Kubernetes admin, and a certified Kubernetes app developer. I'm pretty excited to bring you this session on AIoT. So AIoT is all about running AI and IoT workloads at the edge to perform anomaly detection and predictive maintenance of devices. This session has two parts. The first part is all about the infrastructure, where I'll walk you through the building blocks of the cluster. And the second part is focused on the workload, where I will walk you through the reference architecture and some of the microservices that are composed to deliver this application. So let's get started. The scenario that is used for this session is based on a hypothetical scenario of using turbines and fans that ingest telemetry like sound, vibration, temperature, and rotation. So the sensors connected to each fan ingest this into the system, and a machine learning model is going to detect if a fan is going to fail. Hours before the fan actually fails, it starts to show some symptoms. For example, the rotation comes down while the vibration, temperature, and noise levels go up. Now that's an indication that the fan is going to fail. And our machine learning model will predict that much before the actual failure takes place. This entire solution is running on an edge infrastructure based on a set of Intel NUC machines. Obviously, it is built on top of K3s, Project Calico for networking, and Portworx as the storage layer. So let's take a closer look at the cluster infrastructure. So I have 4 Intel NUC machines. These are small form factor based machines, ideal for running edge infrastructure. And on top of this, I'm running K3s, which is Rancher's Kubernetes distribution, highly optimized for IoT and edge scenarios. And on top of K3s, we have Project Calico, which is providing us with the network policies and the security required for the workload. Portworx, which is giving us the the storage layer responsible for delivering persistence to our AIoT workload. Now this is running at an edge location, and this is being managed by a Rancher installation that is on AWS. So Rancher control plane is running in AWS, while one of the edge clusters is deployed close to the devices that is in the field, close to the turbines and fans. So let me walk you through some of the details of setting up this cluster. Now, as you can see, Rancher is running on the cloud, and our edge solution is deployed in the field. So when I'm configuring the K3s, I'm actually using the recent version, which is 1.19. We have 4 nodes, so out of which 3 nodes are configured as the master. So we are actually running a multi-master installation, and one of the nodes is configured as an agent. And because we need high availability and all the masters need to share the embedded KV database, we are actually using the experimental etcd backend for the cluster. And this is available starting K3s 1.19. So if you actually see how I set up the first node, you actually notice that I disabled traffic because I don't really need an ingress here. And then I chose the cluster CIDR, and I'm not using any Flannel backend because eventually I'm going to deploy Calico. And the first node, I pass the flag that says cluster init. Now this is an indication that I'm going to eventually set up a couple of more nodes that will actually participate in the multi-master setup. And then I go ahead and run the one-liner command to install K3s. So end of this step, we have the first node acting as the master. Now on node 2 and node 3, I repeat pretty much the same, except that I point them to the first server by giving the IP address of that. So end of this, we have 3 nodes, and all the 3 are running an etcd backend, and it's a multi-master HA configuration. Finally, on the 4th node, I basically point to the K3s master, one of the master nodes, and then I run the one-liner command to install the agent. So this completes the simplified K3s setup. What I like about this is the entire setup is done in less than 5 minutes, and it is extremely simple and straightforward. So once we have K3s up and running, then we focus on installing Calico. And because the Flannel backend has been set to none, we can now go ahead and install a CNI compliant network layer. And in this case, it is Calico. So I follow the instructions and I set up Calico. And as you can see in the Calico system namespace, we have the daemon set and all the pods that are running the CNI network. And then I deploy Portworx, which is our storage layer providing persistence to the databases and stateful pods. And because we have 4 nodes, we actually see 4 pods of Portworx deployed as a daemon set. Now, one thing to remember is when we are deploying Portworx on K3s, it's important to enable CSI flag during the spec generation. I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of that. But K3s is a minimalistic Kubernetes distribution, and it relies on CSI instead of using native volume plugins. That's the reason why you need to make sure that Portworx is installed with support for CSI so that K3s can actually talk to Portworx and can provision PVCs, PVs, and use the CSI interface to deal with the underlying storage layer. So that is pretty much the network and storage layer. Now let's actually go ahead and explore the cluster. Now I'm going to switch to my first demo. So here I have my terminal window. So when I actually do kubectl get nodes, there are 4 nodes, and as I explained earlier, we have the first 3 nodes acting as masters and the final node acting as the agent. So it's a 4-node cluster. And when we look at the namespace, we have a bunch of things running here. For example, the Portworx namespace indicates that we are actually running Portworx, Tigera operator, and Calico system. All of those are indicating that we are actually running these building blocks that are helping us with network and storage. So let's take a closer look at this. For example, when I query the kube system namespace, we actually see that the Portworx pods are running as a part of the daemon set, and there is a CSI sidecar attached to each of the pods. And similarly, there are a bunch of pods running within the Calico system namespace, which is representing the CNI network layer through Calico. And then I also deployed MetalLB. So if you actually see the namespace, there is MetalLB system, and this is my load balancer. It's a pretty nifty utility to emulate load balancer in bare metal environments. So when we actually look at the namespace, MetalLB system, again, there are daemon sets. There is a daemon set with 4 pods running, and this is basically the MetalLB environment. So that is the cluster configuration. Now, remember I mentioned that we are managing this cluster through Rancher. So I will switch to the cloud interface, and this is how I basically take control of my K3s cluster running at the edge from the cloud. So this is running on EC2, and this is actually connected to my remote edge cluster. And as you notice, there are 4 nodes. This is pretty much what we have seen with the kubectl output. And then let's switch to the Cluster Explorer, the more recent edition. And this provides us a pretty cool UI. And again, 4 nodes running K3s 1.19. And, there are multiple namespaces here. You can actually see there are multiple namespaces. There is an AIoT namespace, which is currently running our deployment. And, all these are basically representing the individual projects, which are translated to nothing but namespaces. So this is my Rancher interface responsible for managing the remote cluster. So That's the infrastructure. Now, just to do a quick recap, this is where we are. 4 Intel NUCs running K3s, Project Calico, Portworx, all managed by Rancher from the cloud. Perfect. Now let's actually switch to the workload part. So what exactly is our use case? Well, it's a pretty interesting scenario. Now imagine there are multiple turbines. Now every turbine has a fan, and the fan is connected to multiple sensors. Now each sensor is responsible for emitting telemetry. For example, one sensor is sending the temperature, one sensor is sending the RPM information, rotations per minute, the other sensor is sending the vibration in hertz, and then there is another sensor that is capturing the noise level in decibels. Now this telemetry is ingested into an open source MQTT broker, which is Mosquitto. Now Mosquitto is a very popular MQTT broker coming from the Eclipse Foundation, and the PAHO client that talks to the Mosquitto MQTT broker is a pretty popular and pretty powerful tool to deal with MQTT infrastructure. So all the fans are ingesting the telemetry straight to Mosquitto, and Mosquitto is acting our central gateway to IoT, and it is responsible for ingesting all the metrics, all the telemetry coming from these turbines and fans. Now, as soon as a message that is basically one data point lands into Mosquitto, we have a subscriber in the form of predictor. So all these fans are publishers ingesting the telemetry, and then we have a predictor, which is the subscriber to Mosquitto. And what it does is it basically picks up every inbound message and sends it to a TensorFlow model. And this TensorFlow model is a simple logistic regression model, which will come back and tell us if there is a fault predicted with this telemetry. For example, when the telemetry is ingested, one of the data points shows the vibration, noise, and temperature high, but the RPM reducing. It is an indication that the fan is anomalous, or it is going to fail in a few hours, because one of the very early indicators of a faulty fan is the RPM comes down and the vibration goes up. So our anomaly detection model written in TensorFlow will detect that, and that message, based on the device ID and the fault 0 or 1, is actually written back to the Mosquitto MQTT broker in a separate topic. So the job of the predictor is to pick a message, invoke the model for inference, grab the output, the prediction, and write it back to a topic exposed within Mosquitto. Now, we have 2 topics at this point. One topic is meant for all the messages that are incoming, and another topic, which is the anomaly detection topic, primarily managed by the predictor microservice or the predictor component. Now, apart from this, we also have the time series database in the form of InfluxDB. But instead of writing code to pull the data from Mosquitto and write to InfluxDB, I have chosen to use Telegraph. So Telegraph is an agent. It can ingest metrics from a variety of sources, including MQTT broker. So it's a no-code mechanism to basically grab a message from Mosquitto and write it to a time series database, which is InfluxDB. So every message written to MQTT broker, both from the fans and the predictor microservice, is picked up by Telegraph, and it gets ingested or gets persisted in InfluxDB. So InfluxDB is our single source of truth, and it is going to be collecting historical data, which will be eventually used by our machine learning model. And to make it look more professional and to make it look complete, I have also added the Grafana dashboard. So the Grafana dashboard will show us the visualization of the entire setup. It will tell us how many fans are being connected, how many of them are predicted to be faulty, what is the average vibration, temperature, RPM, and so on. So it's a pretty cool way of visualizing the telemetry and the inbound data. So this is the big picture. Now, I know there are a lot of moving parts, and this is a comprehensive design. So to make this easy, I have a tabular form of things that I'm actually using. So fan simulator, it's a sensor. I'm going to run a couple of pods that are going to show us the fan telemetry. So each pod represents one fan. So I'm going to use a simulator for that. And then we are using Mosquitto, which is an open source MQTT broker. Then the predictor is a microservice that I have written in Python, whose job is to grab a message coming from Mosquitto, excuse me, invoke the machine learning model and write the prediction back to Mosquitto. And the ML model, which is a TensorFlow Keras model, is an anomaly detection, very simple logistic regression model. I'm going to walk you through the Jupyter notebook that I have. And then Telegraph is the bridge between the MQTT broker and the InfluxDB. Its job is to ingest every inbound message into the topic, into the MQTT broker, and write it to InfluxDB, which is our persistent store for the time series data. And finally, Grafana is connected to InfluxDB, which will help us visualize and create pretty cool dashboards. So that is the list of components that I'm running within our reference architecture of AIoT. Now, there are some aspects to it. One of the challenges of running a machine learning model at the edge is the ability to scale the inference either manually or automatically by configuring HPA. Now, when our inference service is scaled out, for example, we start with one replica of the deployment, but eventually we will run multiple replicas of this deployment of multiple pods. Now, each pod needs to access the underlying ML model. Now, that is a big challenge. At the same time, we have a traditional transactional database or a time series database which needs its own persistent volume and persistent volume claim. So effectively, our workload uses a dedicated volume for databases like Mosquitto and InfluxDB and a shared volume for machine learning model and inference. As you know, it's pretty difficult to bring in the shared volume capability into an edge cluster. You have to run NFS and then use an NFS provisioner for dynamic provisioning of the volumes, and then use that for persisting or rather storing the machine learning model, which is going to be shared by multiple pods that are scaled out at runtime. Now, managing an NFS server at the edge is a big overhead. So we need a storage layer that is capable of running both dedicated volumes that are optimized for database I/O and throughput. At the same time, shared volumes that can basically create PVCs in the RWX access mode, which is read-write mini. So this is very important because we have two classes of stateful workloads. One class is traditional database like InfluxDB. The other stateful workload is an inference service that is accessing a machine learning model. I chose Portworx because it is one of the few storage services that will provide us with both the capabilities. Now here we are actually seeing two storage classes. The first one is called DBSE, and I'm using the CSI compliant provisioner, which is pxd.portworx.com, and I'm using a replication factor of 3, which means every time data is written to one of the nodes, Portworx will automatically replicate that across multiple other nodes. And this is going to give us high availability even if we are not running a stateful set. At the same time, I have created another storage class which is called InferSE, and InferSE is a shared V4 volume, which means it behaves like an NFS volume, and I can share that volume across multiple pods. So by creating two different storage classes, I am able to align with my use case where I need dedicated volumes and shared volumes. Now that is on the storage side of things. When it comes to network, edge is pretty vulnerable. We cannot take chances with Edge. It got to be highly secure. So you definitely don't want a new pod to show up and take over the access, or you don't want some kind of excuse me, some kind of a malware to make it your edge cluster and make outbound calls. So you want to protect the inbound, that is ingress and egress of your pods. Here I have a network policy, that is protecting our inference service, because inference is like my IP. I don't want anyone else to call it. So I am restricting the ingress to predictor service, and the egress again only to predict. That means my inference service is only receiving the request from the predictor and is responding to the predictor. It cannot actually make an outbound call to the public internet. That is what it is. Of course, in my deployment, I modified this because I'm pulling the model from GitHub or an S3 bucket. So I changed the egress, but technically in production, this is how we define network policies to ensure that our workload is protected. So this entire source code, the source code, the YAML manifests, and everything that you're seeing here is actually available on GitHub at this URL, github.com/janakiram/AIoT. So it's time for me to walk you through the actual workload and show you how this functions. So let me switch back to my terminal, and here I have the app directory. So you see multiple directories, and this is coming straight from the GitHub. I can actually show you this GitHub repo. So this is the GitHub repo where I have the entire source code, and I've also written an extensive tutorial series at the new stack, which is linked from my GitHub repo. So you can actually go through this and pretty much deploy this entire solution. This has all the details, and it's a 4-part series, starting from installing K3s all the way to configuring the workload. So this is completely documented, completely open sourced, and you can clone this repo and get started by yourself. So let's go back to the terminal and go to the deploy directory where I have all the specs and the Kubernetes manifest. So let me walk you through a few things here. So here, this is my Mosquitto pod, okay, Mosquitto deployment. So you notice that there is a PVC for data and PVC for logs. So this is the Mosquitto data PVC, and this is Mosquitto log PVC. This is read write once, and this is pulling an Eclipse Mosquitto image from Docker Hub. It is exposing a load balancer endpoint, pretty straightforward. And if you are curious to see the storage class, here is the storage class. It is optimized for databases, set up with the replication factor of 3, and this gives us a good highly available configuration for MQTT broker, that is Mosquitto, and our InfluxDB deployment. So once I deploy the Mosquitto pod, or rather the deployment, then I have my sensor simulator. So here, if you actually see, I'm passing the broker endpoint, which is the MQTT host. So this is the service endpoint of my deployment, and this is the topic to which the fan will publish the telemetry. And the first device that I'm deploying as the first pod, the default is 0. That means it is a normal fan, and I'm assigning the device ID as 1. All of them are sent as environment variables. Now, when I look at fan 2, this is exactly the same pod, same deployment, but here I changed the default to 1, making the simulator send anomalous data to Mosquitto. So those are 2 pods. Now we can actually take a look at that. So when I do kubectl get pods, you actually see fan 1 and fan 2. Now these 2 are representing 2 devices. One is simulating a normal fan, the other one is simulating a faulty fan. All right, so that is about the device simulators. Then I have the inference service. Now inference service is where I have a storage class which is infer_sc, and this is basically a shared volume. So here I'm actually doing a read write mini, and what I do is I use an init container with BusyBox to pull the model from GitHub and populate one of the directories, and this directory is picked up by my inference service, and this inference service is exposed as a cluster IP on port 5000. Now if you are curious to see how it actually looks like, okay, there we go. So this is basically the Jupyter notebook. If you actually notice, I am picking up this historical data set called fan.csv, and then I am creating a Keras deep learning model, and it is saved to the model directory. So if we go to the model directory, you see there is a saved model .pb, which is a TensorFlow model. So this notebook basically trains the model and saves the model to this directory. Now that is the same model that I actually upload to GitHub and pick it up at runtime. So this is my inference service. Inference service is called by predictor. So again, predictor talks to Mosquitto. It picks up the messages and invokes my inference service. So I again send the environment variables like where is the MQTT host and what is the inbound topic, what is the outbound topic, and where is the scoring URL. So this is the predictor service, and then this is Telegraph. So Telegraph is basically connecting MQTT broker. So if you actually see, the input is coming from the Mosquitto topic, and output is going to InfluxDB, which is available at HTTP InfluxDB. It is again a service, and this is a standard deployment. It's actually stateless. I don't need to mount anything other than the config map. And then finally we have the InfluxDB, which is a stateful set, and InfluxDB is getting the data from Telegraph, and again it is using the same volume which is coming from DBSE. So I'm actually using a dynamic provisioning thing here. It's a stateful set. So this is my InfluxDB deployment. And finally I have Grafana. Grafana is already pre-configured to talk to my InfluxDB instance, and again this is completely stateless, except that I have a config map and an empty dir which is pointing to the scratch disk on the host. So pretty straightforward. So these are all the deployment manifests. Now let's see this in action. So by the way, I also have a network policy, which is making sure that it is getting the input or rather the inbound traffic only from the predictor component, and it is responding to the predictor component. So that is the network policy powered by Calico. Now let's see this in action. So when I actually look at my current pods, so you actually see there is Telegraph. Now the best way of looking at this is let's do logs, and you can actually see that the messages are flowing. Sometimes the fault is 1, which means the inference service is sending the prediction as a faulty service, faulty fan. So this is our Telegraph mediating between the Mosquitto broker and InfluxDB. So so that is about the actual message flow. Now I also have a simple MQTT front end, so I can actually grab this. When we do kubectl get service, now Mosquitto is listening on this IP address, so I'm going to grab this. Let's call it K3S, and so this is the best way to visualize the messages. So if you actually look at the telemetry, alternatively we have like device ID with 1 and 2 ingesting the data to MQTT broker, and here is the anomaly topic. Let me maximize this, and not sure if you're able to see this, but the fault code is either 0 or 1, which is coming from our predictor service after the inference is performed. So this is the MQTT data, or rather the MQTT messages flowing back and forth. So now once we have all of this, we can pretty much look at the Jupyter, the Grafana interface. So now I'm going to grab the URL for Grafana and I'll actually hit the dashboard. So I have already created the dashboard. Again, you can actually go to the dashboards and click on import. So in one of my directories, even on GitHub, you can actually see that you can grab the dashboard JSON. So if you look at the fan.json, it's a fully configured Grafana dashboard. You can copy and paste this into the Grafana directory, in the text box, which is this, and then you can actually access the dashboard. So now we have two fans, basically two pods. One of that is suspected, and here is the live telemetry that's flowing. So this is the rotation in RPM, this is sound in decibels, this is vibration in hertz, and this is temperature in Celsius. So pretty cool. So this is like an end-to-end reference architecture where we are running an AIoT workload, a combination of IoT and AI running on top of an edge cluster powered by K3s, Calico, and Portworx. And the entire source code is available to you on the GitHub. And of course, the tutorial series is available on the News Stack. And feel free to ping me on Twitter if you need any inputs on this. So that was a quick walkthrough of how to run AIoT workload on an edge cluster based on K3s. So thank you, and I look forward to answering the questions. Have a great conference ahead.